If you haven't heard of the Black Knight satellite, well, I won't say you've been under a rock, but I will say you're in the minority, especially among conspiracy theorists. This dark, unknown object was first photographed in 1998 during the STS-88 mission, which was the very first space shuttle mission to the International Space Station. Once the mission was complete, several photos were released from NASA. The photo that contained this mysterious object obviously stirred up excitement and confusion throughout the community. Many theorists believe this strange object is an extraterrestrial satellite that was placed there more than 13,000 years ago. Some claim that the satellite is designed to appear as small space debris to conceal itself within Earth's orbit. Although the object wasn't seen until 1998, some attribute the strange object's discovery all the way back to an astronomical radio source supposedly heard during the 1899 radio experiments of Nikola Tesla, as well as long-delayed echoes first heard by an amateur radio operator named Jørgen Hals from Norway in 1928. Jørgen turned to many physicists for help, but no one could explain this phenomenon. That being said, some claim the radio source Tesla heard were pulsars which weren't identified until 1968, although this theory is unlikely. In 1954, UF researcher Donald Keyhoe would tell newspapers that the United States Air Force reported 2 satellites orbiting Earth. At this point in time, no country had the necessary technology to launch satellites. The New York Times ran an article at the same time claiming Dr. Lincoln LaPaz had discovered 2 objects in our orbit. This concerned and worried the United States, thinking the Russians had possibly beat them into space. LaPaz would go on record saying he made the entire thing up and that no such objects existed. Fast forward to February 1960, Time magazine reported that the US Navy detected a dark object thought to have been a Soviet spy satellite in orbit, although a follow-up article confirmed the object to be the remains of an Air Force Discovery 8 satellite that had gone astray. However, declassified documents would be released proving that this was a cover-up. It was actually an American spy satellite doing reconnaissance on Russia. In 1961, French scientist Jacques Vallée made an exciting discovery. He found a bright, unidentified object in retrograde, meaning it was moving in the opposite direction of the Earth's rotation. At the time, humans didn't have the technology to put satellites into retrograde. Vallée showed his tape to his superiors and it was quickly confiscated and the footage was erased. Some claim this was because it showed the Black Knight satellite. 2 years later, astronaut Gordon Cooper supposedly reported a UFO sighting during his 15th orbit in Mercury 9. The sighting was confirmed by multiple tracking stations. However, there is no physical evidence to prove this, and his transcripts in fact show the opposite of his claims. In the 1970s, Duncan Lunan, a science fiction author, took Jørgen Hall's radio echoes and mapped them against constellations. His findings confirmed the signals were from the star Epsilon Boötis, claiming the decoded message read, "Our home is Epsilon Boötis, which is a double star. We live on the 6th planet of 7. Check that, the 6th of 7. Counting outwards from the sun, which is the larger of the 2 stars. Our 6th planet has 1 moon. Our 4th planet has 3. Our 1st and 3rd planet each have 1. Our probe is in the orbit of your moon." Lunan would later withdraw his claims, but this didn't stop theorists believing that the probe mentioned was in fact the Black Knight. James Oberg, a space journalist, considers it highly probable that the photograph is a thermal blanket that was confirmed to have been lost during an EVA by 2 former astronauts, Jerry L. Ross and James H. Newman. Jerry Ross says the object is most likely a thermal blanket that broke loose while his team tried to attach an American module to a Russian module on the ISS. According to the Senior Education Support Officer Martina Redpath of Armagh Planetarium in Northern Ireland, the Black Knight is a jumble of completely unrelated stories and reports of unusual science observations and people over-interpreting photos. In April of 2016, NASA's pioneering New Horizons probe reached the Kuiper Belt, a distant region of space on the outer edges of our solar system. Just as the New Horizons probe moved beyond Pluto, the sensors captured what appeared to be a large object on an odd and mysterious trajectory. The probe observed it from 111 million kilometers away. Scientists name it Arwan, after the Celtic god of death, war, and terror. As you can see, they didn't seem too joyful about this strange floating rock. R1 seems to be moving in a very stable orbit, likely as stable as Pluto's. This suggests that it may be a primordial Plutino formed around the same time as Pluto was. R1 behaves extremely strange. Unlike other floating debris in the area, the object seems somewhat illuminated, but goes dark abruptly. R1 illuminates and then darkens in a very precise rhythm. The object is also rotating at 1 rotation per 5.5 hours. This indicates that the front of the object is around 50 miles per hour. Adam Hadaizi, a science writer, claims this is comparable to the state of Delaware completing a full spin in around a quarter of a day. The scientists expected the Kuiper belt to be full of clusters of rock and ice, but R1's odd attributes suggest it's made of something entirely different. According to planetary scientist Cheney Raniba, R1 is spinning so fast that the centrifugal force could apparently tear this object apart. New Horizons probe made an attempt to move in and utilize its sensors for a more accurate inspection. Just before the probe is in a perfect position to investigate, its circuits suddenly power down. Transmission from the operators in the probe gets cut off completely. Was this a coincidence? Or was something monitoring the probe's presence? Before the connection is lost, scientists are able to see that R1 is spinning in a manner comparable to a large spaceship. Spinning this fast gives off the impression that this unknown object is attempting to create artificial gravity. Spinning would create an artificial gravity environment inside the object's hollow center. NASA has known that long-haul space travel will only be possible if we're able to create and control artificial gravity and use it to our advantage. Analysts compare R1 with NASA's attempts of creating gravity in a space environment. NASA's original concept involved a spinning ship, allowing passengers to live inside the ship without the harsh conditions of no gravity. As early as 1960, NASA began ground experiments researching the effects artificial gravity had on the human body. Still to this day, humans can only sustain composure during artificial gravity tests for short periods of time. Our bodies just aren't meant to be without gravity. The brain becomes confused and breathing is noticeably difficult. So for now, artificial gravity and a long-haul space travel is a dream we are still striving towards. Although R1's 50 mph surface speed is fast enough to create gravity, it's not enough gravity to sustain human passengers. We know very little about this mysterious spinning object near the Kuiper belt, or why it's there in the first place. Despite these objects being harmless floating space debris or something more intelligent, I think we can all agree that the universe is a remarkable place, and we as humans will always love a good story. See you on the other side.